Hello, beautiful, and welcome to another Thursday Talks and the Organizing Mindset podcast with me, Suzanna Kaye, and I'm so glad to have you with me this week. Today, we are talking about 5 techniques to reduce anxiety when you're organizing your papers or anything really. And so I'm glad that you're joining me. As you hop on, let me know who you are and where you're joining me from in the chat area. And also, while you're at it, tell me in the comments, what projects cause you the most anxiety when you're organizing? I always love to hear back from you so I can give you the targeted information and help. And also, just I love our conversations. So tell me in the comments, what projects cause you the most anxiety when you're organizing? So today we are talking about some of my favorite ways to reduce anxiety when you're organizing papers or things around your home. So strap in and let's do this. All right. When we talk about anxiety with paper organizing or any type of organizing, what we're really talking about is all of that stress and fear that either make it miserable for us to do whatever it is that we're doing, but more often than not, it actually blocks us. That gives us that paralysis or that procrastination or that feeling of overwhelm. All of those are signs of anxiety going on. So let's talk about 5 simple, easy to understand, practice to implement ways that you can bust that anxiety so you can overcome that procrastination and that overwhelm. Number 1, don't look at the whole project and the end, just focus on the next step. Pardon me. So, what do I mean when I say this? Don't look at the whole project in the end, just focus on the next step. A lot of times we look at whatever task we are working on and we think of it in terms of the entire project, and our goal is to get to the finish line, right? So when we do that, then that's telling our brain that this is a massive project. There are so many steps. There are possibly things that you might not be sure about what the next steps are, or information you might not be positive about yet. The goal is so far away. All of this just builds up in our head and makes this project, this task that we're working on, which is part of a project, makes the project and this end goal that seems very far away the focus. However, if you take that back a step and just focus on the task, you already know that this task is going to lead towards the end of that project, right? You know the goal. You already figured out what tasks you need to do within the next few steps. So you don't need to think about the goal of finishing the project or the project as a whole. You really only need to focus on the task that you're working on, right? And if you do that and focus on just that one task and see that task to completion, then that is much more motivating and much less anxiety inducing, right? Because you're only focusing on that task instead of worrying about this possible future. So some examples of this might be, maybe you have a lot of old papers to organize, whether you have 2 boxes worth or closets and guest rooms and maybe even storage units full of boxes and bags and laundry baskets full of papers. Either way, it does not matter. You can still reel it back in by focusing on just what is the next step. What's that next task? The small step that you're currently working on. And one way to do that with a project like a whole lot of papers to organize would be to hide all of those future steps from yourself as much as you can and take out just one small part at a time. So when talking about a large number of papers to organize, one way to do that would be put all of the boxes of papers into a different room or a different closet and not your main living area, right? And just tuck it away. And then what you do is you take out one box, or probably even one just handful or smaller box at a time, and just work on sorting that. And if you do that, then your brain can help let go of how much there still is to do and focus on just what you're doing right then, right? If you can't just tuck it in another room, sometimes you might just need to cover it up. Cover it up with a sheet or a tablecloth, make it into a table. It's okay if your boxes of papers are underneath a tablecloth, and that can be a makeshift table while you're slowly pulling one handful at a time out to work on. But at least it's not something that your brain is really paying attention to as being papers. It's kind of hidden. So hiding part of the project from yourself, hiding those future steps can be helpful. Ways to hide a project that might not be a physical project. Maybe you have a large project with a number of to-do items. A great way to deal with that is don't look at your whole to-do list that day and the whole project task list. Just look at what 3 tasks do I have on my plate first today, and only focus on those 3 tasks. Put the rest of the to-do list away because it does not matter. You're not working on that right now, right? So just focus on what you're working on right now and don't have that long to-do list in front of you. So one of the thoughts that I like to think about is what can you do today versus what can't you do today, or that you're not near the end with, so you can't do it all yet, right? If you can't do it right now because either there's something more important or there are steps before it, then get it out of your sight, get it out of your frame of reference, and don't think about that right now. You're just thinking about the task at hand. And I want to talk about that, the psychology of that really quickly in just a moment, but I wanted to head over to the chat. Hi, Nancy. She says hi from Colorado. Lori says, not knowing what to do with papers that don't belong to one of my files, but I want to keep them. Ooh, that's very anxiety driven, right? Absolutely. And that's one of those things. Since you are a Pathfinder, we can absolutely talk about this during the Pathfinders Thursday talk too. But homeless items and homeless papers can be very anxiety inducing for sure. And there are definitely ways to deal with that. Lori says hi to Nancy. Not sure that she was on the public talk because nobody else was in the chat. Yeah, it was slow for the chat to pick up today. I don't know what's going on. Hi, Sherry. Glad to have you here. Welcome. Lori says some of the tasks by themselves will take too long to complete. If it's a task that feels like it takes too long to complete and that is creating anxiety, then it's not a small enough task. You need to break it down further. So if the task is enter all of your receipts for the year, that's too big of a task. What about enter all those receipts for the month, or even enter all, like, this one handful of receipts, right? So break it down smaller. If it's still bringing up anxiety, then it might be too large of a task. If you're at the smallest possible step and it's still bringing up anxiety, then there's a root fear happening there. And that's what we talk about during that deep dive workshop that's going on. You can see it in the store. But if there's that root fear going on, then that's something to address. Again, though, it's anxiety. So we're still tackling anxiety. It just might be a different form. But step 1, see if you can get it down to the tiniest micro step possible and just focus on that step, not anything else related to it. Yeah, Nancy says, hi, Lori, I agree. Tasks take longer than I think, and I tend to sit till I get them done. Yeah, right? And if they take longer than you think, then sometimes you might need to break it down into something smaller, right? Into a smaller task, or start to pay attention. How long do these things really take? Maybe give yourself, time and a half amount of time or double the amount of time to complete a task. And that way you feel better at the end because, oh, look, I completed sooner than I'd given myself time for. Instead of pushing yourself to get all the way to the end, even though it's taking a lot longer than you thought. And sometimes we need, for our anxiety's sake and to retrain ourselves psychologically, sometimes we need to stop doing a task and pause until later and walk away from it. Undone. I know that makes a lot of people want to cry. But undone tasks are okay if they're undone on purpose, right? If they're just paused. Yep. Nancy says the next time I'm afraid of how long stuff takes, yeah, double that time that you think it's going to take. And then that way you will feel much more positive because you'll give yourself a new way of feeling, right? You're going to prove to yourself that tasks can be done in less time than you've planned for. And once your brain gets on board with that new reality, it's going to be amazing how much that opens up. But by under planning your time, right? Giving yourself less time than the tasks seem to actually take, that is contributing to your brain thinking, oh, everything takes so long, and then the guilt and the shame and the like all the stuff that we do to ourselves. So give yourself more time, and then if you end up with extra time, then it's a bonus and you can still get stuff done in it. I think it's just it's really important to retrain our brain that way. Hi, Cindy from the cold Boston area. Glad to have you here. Lori says, I'm trying to identify what are all the small steps for big projects, and you don't need to know all of them. I know, sounds crazy, but you don't. You don't need to know all of the small steps for a big project. You just need to know the next one or two. And once you do those, then the next one or two will become clear. But sitting down and trying to figure out all the small steps, projects are like an ever-moving, fluid thing, right? As we do them, we learn new things, we discover things, we find efficiencies and new ways to do things. So they change as we go. If we were to try to sit down and create all of our steps ahead of time, or even a lot of them, then that's going to be a waste of time because most of those steps are going to change. So just think, what's the next one or two steps that I can take on this project? Let's see. Janice says something happened with the login to get here. Not sure if it's just me. My phone has been weird yesterday and today. Aw, well, I'm glad that you're here. Tony says, hello, I'm with Lori and Nancy. Those are both my ongoing struggles, right? Breaking it down into small steps and feeling like everything takes so much longer. Those are so normal. Yeah, they are. And they're not fun. Melody says, hi from Virginia. Welcome. All right, so we talked about don't look at the whole project all the way through the end and don't focus on that end goal. Focus just on the next step. The reason why this works so well is because anxiety is based in the future. It's based in thinking about the what ifs and trying to plan for the future. And the future is not set in stone, so we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But if we're focused on the future, which would include the goal and the rest of the project, then that's going to build up anxiety. Anxiety only lives in us when we're not in the present. Anxiety does not live in the present. Action does, right? So in the present is the task that you're working on. If we can stay focused on just the task that we're working on, that small step, then we can reduce the anxiety. And then once we're done with that small step, we can figure out that next small step. And I promise you will get there so much faster than if you were trying to plan and think about the whole project. So that was number one. Number two, start with sorting. Okay, with papers and organizing your home. If an area or a project feels like out of control and uncertain and you're not even sure where to start, I like to start with sorting. The act of sorting things, such as if you had a huge room full, like your guest room, and it was full of all sorts of different things that just need to be sorted out, organized, put away, then it can feel overwhelming because when you look at the room, there are so many different things for different categories that have different needs and different thoughts. But when we start to sort and group them by category, then we bring ourselves to the now and we're working in the present, right? And anxiety does not live in the present. It lives in the future and our fears of the future. So we bring ourselves back to the present because we're in motion. We're doing the sorting. We're in that moment instead of worrying about the future and what we're going to do. And it allows you to see what all is in that room. how much you have of each type of thing. So when you're sorting into broad categories, talking like 10 categories or fewer, and this works with papers too. That's the onion method that we talk about. But when you sort into broad categories, it allows you to get a sense of what is in that room or that area. And as you're sorting, the next steps will become clear. You will start to have ideas about, oh, this would be great if I could work it into this area or create an organizational area here. Oh, this would work really well if I put it in this box, because this box would fit somewhere. I don't even need this, right? As we're sorting into categories and we're not stressing about the future, that's when things become clear. As a professional organizer, I did this all the time. I would walk into so many spaces that were normally overwhelming, but once I started sorting and categorizing things, that allowed me to be in the present moment, truly see what types of things are there, and my brain would start to create the action plan without me forcing it. So start with sorting. Sort into categories or sort into steps. Sometimes we just need a massive brain dump for a project to get all of these worries and things that we're worried about forgetting, these tasks for the future, out of our head. So you can do that by doing a brain dump into which larger steps, I call them milestones, which larger milestones do these steps belong in? And you can just kind of dump them into these lists for these larger steps, these milestones, right? Just create a list and start dumping things into, okay, this section of the project, this task goes there. Does not have to be complete with every task that will be there. It's just a holding area for what's in your head so your brain can let it go. So when you are sorting, your brain can let these things go because now we've created a safe place for them for when we get to that area in the future, right? When you've sorted that guest room, say you've got clothes in one category and paper items in another and office supplies in another. Well, you can now work with the clothes and not worry about the papers and the office supply items because those have a safe container, quote unquote, a virtual container. They're in their group for when you get to that. So your brain can let it go better because it's got a safe place. It's been bookmarked in your brain. So now your brain can focus on just dealing with the clothes, and later on it knows it can get to the papers, it can get to the office supplies. Same thing with the project. You brain dumped those tasks, you kind of put them into their broad steps that they might go in, or you just dump them all onto one to-do list, but then you let that go for now. You put it aside and you just focus on the current step. So sorting helps you see what needs to be done. It helps you break things into smaller bites because as you're sorting, you will see like things that go together and you will start to see, okay, well, this is a small bite. This is a bigger bite that needs to be broken down. And you want to start with categories or steps that are easiest for you. So when you are sorting into your broad categories, once you've got those categories done, just pick the easiest one and then get started with that because we want that low barrier to entry. We want that easy in to keep on moving, and the easiest in is the easiest category. So if the clothes were the easiest for you, start with the clothes. If the office supplies are much easier, start with the office supplies. Go with what's easy. You don't have to dive into the hardest one first, right? All right, before we go to number 3, I wanted to hop into the comments. Thank you, Charlene. She says, let's give Suzanna a thumbs up. I just did. Yes, please give me likes, thumbs ups, share this video. It's always so helpful. I appreciate you, Charlene. Thank you, beautiful. All right, Tony says, it's strange. I sort things and can do the first step, but then my brain sometimes thinks I'm done. The next thing you know, the donations are in the box indefinitely until it bothers me for a year. Ooh, I would love to unpack that. Yeah, so during our Pathfinders Thursday talk for the members, since I know that you're one of our members, let's talk about, if you're open to it, let's talk about Like, what is going on in your brain? What thoughts are happening that lets your brain create that sometimes I think I'm done? It sounds like it's a protective strategy for your brain to not have to keep going. Because that's what our brain does sometimes. Sometimes it purposely forgets things because it doesn't want to do them, because there's some kind of a fear there, right? And safety is one of our things. We want understanding and then safety, and that comes before clarity, movement, motivation. So the safety step is definitely, there's a flag going on there. Interesting. I love that. And not uncommon. Not uncommon. Lori says, when I mentioned earlier that I wanted to identify all the small steps for a project, this was my brain dump, which as new tasks come to mind, I add it to the list so I can pick one step to work on now. Yes, all the yeses. That is so brilliant, Lori. Yes, yes, yes. So the brain dump with all of the small steps that you can think of, and then setting it aside to work on just the one step now is absolutely the way to go. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good one. All right, so we talked about, number one, we talked about don't look at the whole project and the end goal. Just focus on the next step. What task are you working on now, right? We talked about start with sorting. If it's overwhelming and you don't even know where to start sorting. Sort into categories, sort the different small steps and tasks into groups, whatever you can do, but start sorting, because that's what lets our brain kind of get a handle on things and give us clearer direction. Next is the rule of fives. So there are so many times when anxiety gets us completely stuck, or it causes us to keep working on a project, or a task, I should say, longer than is truly necessary or efficient. So whether you're stuck or you get stuck in this perfectionist sort of perfectionist habit of you keep on going, keep on wanting to make it perfect, wanting to include all of the possible information you could possibly need. All of those types of things are kind of a perfectionist habit. That is also anxiety for the future, trying to be over prepared, trying to be like as excellent as it can be, which for some things, if you're a brain surgeon, yes, please be a perfectionist. But if you're not a brain surgeon, most of the things that we do during our daily lives do not need that level of perfection. So at that point, we are using up our willpower and our energy that we could be using on something else, not to mention our time. We're creating a more stressful experience that our brain is going to remember that, oh yeah, when I do those tasks, I get stressed out, because you're creating these high expectations. So when anxiety hits, whether it's perfectionist habits or overwhelm, shutdown, paralysis, think of the rule of fives. So whatever task you are thinking of, or even project or group of tasks, think to yourself, will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? Now, why is the rule of fives going to help you with this, right? So the rule of fives is going to help put things in perspective. So when we first think of a task sometimes, or a project, or when we are overwhelmed and everything seems really big and important, then this can kind of bring us back to reality. When we're working really hard on perfecting something, right? Sometimes we need to come back to reality of how important this one task really is to decide, is this worth all that extra effort? If we're paralyzed or stuck, sometimes we've made this into something so much more important than it really is. So if you look at your task or your project and you ask the questions, will this matter in 5 minutes? Will this matter in 5 days, weeks, months, years? Then it gives your brain kind of a frame of reference for how important this will really be. So let's do an example. An example would be if you are, let's say, if you are entering your receipts into your accounting software, right? Then you're just entering your receipts into your accounting software. Let's think about that. And when we are thinking about that, we need some details, right? So what kind of receipts are these? Maybe these are not tax receipts. They are just receipts for how much you're spending right now, right? So will that, and they're not business receipts. Let's say they're personal receipts, not for taxes. So will this matter in 5 minutes? Yeah, you would probably still use this in 5 minutes. It would be great to have some reports that would pull that all that information. Will this matter in 5 days? Most likely, within the next 5 days, those reports would still be really helpful for me to be able to pull up this information. Would this matter in 5 weeks? Most likely. I would probably pull like the last few months in order to see my trend. Would this matter in 5 months? Maybe. It might be less important in 5 months because the most current few months would probably be my most important part to have. But in 5 months, I probably would not use most of the information that I just entered. Would this matter in 5 years? Barely. It may just be interesting for, history's sake. Most of the information though that I'm adding would probably not really be applicable to me in 5 years anymore. Because remember, these are just personal. They're not business. They're not for taxes. So that gives me a framework. So this is something where in the short term, this is going to help me a lot. As it gets further along, this is going to be less and less important, right? So that gives my brain a framework as to, hey, is this going to be life-changing? Now, let's think about something else, like maybe my Spark Life Binder, right? Now, the Spark Life Binder is that binder that has all of your most important life information for you and your loved ones, so that if anything happened or if you need information quickly, you have it all in one place and you know that you're not missing a lot of important information for your life, right? So filling in your Spark Life Binder. Will this matter in 5 minutes? Probably not. It probably won't matter in 5 minutes because it's unlikely that you're going to need it 5 minutes from now. Will this matter in 5 days? It might. You might need some information within the next 5 days, and this will make it easier. Will this matter in 5 weeks? Possibly. Something could happen within the next 5 weeks where having that information easy to grab could be important. Will this matter in 5 months? Ooh, it's getting much more likely that having your Spark Life Binder 5 months from now, like over the next 5 months, you will probably use it at least once, most likely multiple times, in order to find that information. And at that point, your family members might even have to find information in it. Will this matter in 5 years? Absolutely. Within 5 years, you will have used it multiple times. Your family members may have had to use it sometimes. Something could have happened where it could have been essential and, either life-saving, finance-saving, something like that. So that now puts this in perspective, right? Your Spark Life Binder, this is something that is going to make a huge difference in your life for the long run. It's not just a short-term thing. It is your massive, massive change in your life years and years and years from now even. So that helps you put that into a frame of reference. How important is it? And then once we can assign how important it is and compare things and figure out where they belong, that reduces anxiety, because our anxiety a lot of times is from not knowing, not being able to tell what's more important and what's not. So use the rule of 5s, right? Will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? And that gives your brain a frame of reference. So that was what, number 3? Yeah, number 3. I've got 2 more. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I've got 1 more. I've got 1 more. I totally lied to you. But let's go over the comments. I wanted to say, let's see. So Lori says, my Qigong teacher often says, the motion is the lotion. Ooh, I love that. I can apply this to picking a small, easy task to get going on a larger project. Absolutely. Your Qigong teacher is a brilliant person. I love that. The motion is the lotion. It definitely getting into motion makes it so much easier to then move into other things, right? Not moving, being still, that means that it's much harder to move into things, especially the hard things. So picking something, even the easy something, even something not related, is going to move you into some of these harder things. And you can start with something completely unrelated and then do an easy thing for the project, and then that'll get you into the project. I love that. Thank you, Lori. Coral here, she says, I have a shoebox after taxes that I dump them unless they are part of the tax year. Yes, I love that. And that's nice and easy because throughout the year, you're not trying to figure out, is this taxes? Is this not taxes? What am I going to do with it? You just can deal with it when it's tax time. And I love that. So brilliant idea. You've just made it nice and easy for yourself. And I'm sure that your future self thanks you. Melanie, she says, hi from Southern California. The sorting has been a godsend for me. Though the job at hand seems massive, putting it into small bites of sorting really helps. Yay! I love that. She says, for example, a group of coupons. The first sort is food, pets, non-food, then food into the various groups in my coupon holder. Yes, right? There's so many structures that already exist, especially for organizing, where the main step is sorting, right? Like having a coupon holder, they have the sections for you because organizers and psychologists know that the act of sorting things out makes it so much easier for your brain to wrap itself around what all you're dealing with and to see things in smaller bites. Once you've sorted, then those are now little milestones. And within that milestone, you can figure out what the steps are, right? You can make it much easier than if it's everything. That's such a great example. Thank you, Melanie. Hi, Peggy from Pennsylvania. Glad to have you here, Peggy Jean. Lori says to Melanie, what's the magic project you're working on, paper or horses? That's such a good question, right? Melanie's been doing amazing with her progress. Peggy Jean says, I have to leave in a few minutes. My class will begin. Thanks, Suzanna, for this video. You're so welcome. I'm glad that you could pop by. Cindy says, Suzanna, I can remember that 5 rule. Yes. Yay, the rule of 5s. I love it. Lori says, is it more important to do things that will matter in 5 years instead of 5 minutes? Ooh, excellent question. And not necessarily. So once your brain has figured out where it belongs, as far as, is this a forever thing for your life or is this an in the moment thing, that also lets your brain know how much effort to really put into it, right? So if you are trying to be more perfect and complete and enter all the details for something that is going to matter 5, 10, 15 lifetime from now, that your brain knows is worth the effort more. So it is, I'm not saying go perfectionist with your Spark Life Binder, but that effort that you're putting into your Spark Life Binder is going to pay off in the long run so much more than if you are putting that same amount of effort into your short-term projects, right? Now, the Spark Life Binder does not require that much effort, thankfully, but if you were to try to make it perfect and try to put on the perfect labels and things like that, then at least that effort is something that's going to last and make a difference longer term, right? And spending more time on that means that your future is going to be much more solid and much more protected. Now, that does not mean that the short-term projects are not important. It simply means that you probably do not need to take it to the perfection level. Because if it's not going to matter that much in 5 months, 5 years, then why make it so perfect for something temporary, right? So that current project of entering the receipts, yes, the receipts might be important. You can break it down more and say, okay, now let's just figure out what is actually important from those receipts, because I don't need absolutely everything that could possibly be entered. and I don't need to enter it absolutely perfectly. I need short-term information. What information do I need from the receipts? What is truly useful for me up to maybe 5 months from now? And what is not that useful for me, right? So reduce the amount of information that you need to capture from the receipt. What, if you're trying to do it in a spreadsheet or in your accounting software and using a bunch of different tags, right? If you're spending a lot of time on just the formatting and making it pretty, or adding a million different tags and categories and specific like item category numbers, then that is adding a whole lot more work for a very short-term benefit. So maybe you can use broader categories. Maybe you use fewer tags. What tags are you truly going to be using within the next, 5 days, 5 months at the most? What truly matters? Because in the long run, you really won't be looking back at the receipts as much. You might look back at larger things, but not those daily little things. So that tells your brain how, like, the shorter term, those are the things you want to scale back on. You don't want to make them as perfect. You don't want to spend a lot of time formatting and over pulling information and making it a bigger project than it needs to, because you only need the information temporarily. Something like the Spark Life Binder, that is more important to find the accurate information, make sure that it's filled in to the best of your ability, because that is effort that will be paid off for the long term. So it's much more worth that extra effort. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Melody says, the scariest moment, in quotes she says, the scariest moment is always just before you start. Stephen King. Ooh, I love that one. That is so true. Ooh, I just got goosebumps. Thank you. Yes, Melody. That's a great, great quote from Stephen King. I want to read it again. The scariest moment is always just before you start. Yeah, before we start, our brain is still future thinking and pulling up all the possible worries and trying to protect ourselves. But once we get started, then our brain can be in the moment and it can let go of all that fear, right? And it can be just in the moment. And then we can pick up momentum. Hello, Rosella. She says, hello from New York City, getting started, papers, and deciding how to store things that are being kept. That's the anxiety stuff, right? Getting started is a big one for people too. Janice says, I'm literally sitting here visualizing 5 bins, one for each category. That might be illuminating with Mom's papers. Yay! Oh, I love that. Good, good, good. And Tony says, that actually helps me with thinking of the bathroom. Why do it perfect when it's going to be dirty again? I need to just do something. Small things like take out the trash, wipe the sinks before the big tasks. Yes, and even the big tasks, you know what? When you're scrubbing the toilet, which I don't know too many of us that like to scrub the toilet, right? If it's not perfectly done, what does it matter? It's just going to be dirty again. And you can get that spot that you might have missed next time, right? So imperfectly done for these short-term items, imperfectly done is so much better than not done at all. Or it's better than spending so much time making it perfect that you then can't take out the trash or wipe down the counters, right? You're giving up something to make scrubbing the toilets perfect. So make it really good, right? It's good enough. It's really good, but it does not have to be absolutely perfect, because you're gonna do it again next week, or depending on your household, it could be sooner or later. So those temporary tasks, yeah, I love that. Why do it perfect when it's going to be dirty again? Great, great quote. All right, so we talked about don't look at the whole project in the end. Just focus on the next step. Start with sorting. The rule of 5s. Will it matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, or 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? Fourth one. What one small step can you take to make progress on this task? Sometimes when a task is overwhelming and we don't know what the right step is and right is in quotations here, okay? What's the right next step? What's the next step that you quote unquote should do? Any step forward is better than being paralyzed waiting for the right step forward, right? So any small step, which one small step can you make progress on for this task? And like Lori said, her Qigong teacher said, the motion is the lotion. Once you get moving, it makes things easier and it makes it more clear. Your brain is now in a different part. It's working in a different part of your brain. You're not thinking about the future and the fears and the what ifs. You are instead working in the present. You're working on whatever small step it was, whether it was pull out the binder. I mean, that's a step, right? Just pull out and open the binder is a step. Or if it's, fill in one blank, or if it's put more batteries in the label maker because you're going to label things, it does not matter. Start with one small step that brings you into the present moment, and now your brain can see more clearly what the next step is. It's not going to see it clearly if you're sitting there trying to think of it, though, because your brain is still in future thinking. Bring it to present thinking by doing some motion, right? So what one small step can you make progress on with this task? It can be a not too scary step. It does not have to be the right step, the perfect step, the step you should do. Any step is better than no step, right? And make sure to break it down into the smallest step possible. If the step is too big, if it still feels overwhelming, then that means that it's probably a step that can be broken down into something smaller. So if you're still feeling overwhelmed, 95% of the time, it can be broken down into something smaller. That 5% of the time, that's what we talk about in the deep dive workshop that's in the online store, right? That's when we're talking about the scare or the safety, the fear and the safety part, which applies to everything. It's more than just 5% of your productivity, but breaking it down into smallest steps can get you so much more close to that. So an example would be for your Spark Life binder, fill in just one easy blank. Doesn't matter if it's the next blank. It can be anywhere in the binder. You could just fill in your name today, right? Write your name on the top of one of the pages. That's a success. Put it away, repeat it tomorrow. One easy blank. And if you keep doing that, then your brain is going to eventually start reframing how it thinks about the Spark Life binder, especially because you're not pushing yourself to keep going, and it will change that anxiety. It'll flip that switch for you, right? So let me share one last one. And because I did not write it down, let me okay, so this is our step number 5. I did promise you 5. Here's number 5. And this is a really important one because so often we put off working on a project until we have enough time or until it's the right time, right? We're in the right energy. We're in the right headspace. We have at least an hour to spend. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for a specific time to come, because most of the time, either that time does not come, or when that time does come, you have 200 things that are waiting for that time. Which one are you going to pick now? And then those other 199 don't get done because you can only pick one for that time. So when we break things down into small steps, then that means they can fit into smaller spaces of time and they don't require as much energy or willpower, right? It's a small step, one small step. So you can do just about anything if your brain is convinced that it will be safe and it's not going to take that long. When we break it down into one small step, it tells our brain that it is safe. You don't need to figure everything out for the future. You only need to do this one thing. So that gives your brain safety. And it also reassures your brain you're not going to be doing this all day. I promise I'm not going to keep pushing you further than you're comfortable. We have this one small step, and then we can walk away. So giving your brain the safety of being okay with not finishing something, but walking away before it's worn out is going to give your brain that safe feeling for future tasks as well, right? Just like if it was a friend. If you had a friend come over to help you, but every time they came over, the task took longer, it was harder than they expected, and you expected them to work even longer and harder than they had planned on, then that friend is not going to want to come and help you again, right? You're going to go further down on that priority list for them. I know I would not want to help you. So your brain can be your friend if you treat it like you would treat a friend, and you give it clear expectations, safety, and respect the time limits as far as its energy and its willpower. Do not keep pushing it past that energy and willpower point. And sometimes it's really short, and that's okay. So be okay with stopping a project before it's done, and then it's not a full stop. It's a pause. You will come back to it in the future, but pause it for the day before it's done. So your brain has that safe feeling that you're not going to push it further than it really wants to and comfortably can go. So don't wait for the right or enough time, and don't keep pushing yourself once you are in it. You don't have to finish everything as soon as you start it. You simply need to pause sometimes and then pick it back up again later. But that is an essential for anxiety, because so much anxiety comes from I don't have enough time to finish, which if finishing is not the goal, then that removes that anxiety. It's going to take so long. It removes that anxiety because your brain trusts that you're not going to push it further than you need to. And if it's broken down into a small step, then it does not take that long for that one small step, right? So waiting for the right time, waiting for that right energy, the motivation does not inspire action. You cannot wait for motivation in order to do something. Motivation actually happens after you have understanding, safety, clarity, and movement. Without those, motivation does not show up. All right? So if you're waiting for motivation, that right time, then you've got it backward. Get into motion. Create that safety for yourself. If you want to know more about it, head over to SuzannaKaye.com and check out the deep dive series, because we go really into like a really deep conversation over 5 weeks about understanding safety, clarity, movement, motivation. And if you can get that concept and understand each of those parts, and they're very easy once you get them, but getting them requires a bit of thought and a bit of explanation, right? Like that's why it's 5 weeks. But if you can get that, then you can get unstuck on just about anything. I want to say everything, but I'm not somebody who can be that finite about things. 99.999% of things will no longer get you stuck if you do understanding, safety, clarity, movement, and motivation. Motivation comes last. So do these things, and this will help with some of those steps ahead of time. So let's recap, all right? We're talking about those 5 techniques to reduce anxiety with paper organizing and any organizing in your life, right? It's not just papers, any projects, any organizing, but we tend to talk about papers. Step number 1, don't look at the whole project and the end goal, just focus on the next step. Number 2, start with sorting. Just sort it into categories. Number 3, use the rule of 5s. Will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? 4, what one small step can you take to make progress on this task? And number 5, don't wait for the right time or for enough time, right? It's all about time and creating that safety of time. So tell me in the chat area, what project will you take a small step on this week? Preferably one that maybe you've been putting off or been trying to make too perfect. What can you kind of back off on and do it without so much anxiety? So what are you working on this week that will make a difference? So in the chat, yeah, Janice said about cleaning that bathroom. They aren't even going to stay clean. The toilets aren't going to stay clean. So why make them perfect? Amen, sister. Lori says, since I started using Quicken and ran a couple reports, I'm finding the info I put in the notes column doesn't show up on the report. So I need to find out if I should tag or enter it in a memo column. See, fantastic. That is so good because you started by entering some information, how you thought it would be useful. Then you ran some reports, how you expect to be able to do it, and you analyzed, is this giving me the information I need? And that's when you caught, oh, okay, the notes are not showing up in the report, so how can I adjust? That is so, so smart. Instead of trying to get everything entered and then finding out that the notes aren't even showing up how you expected, having that analysis step before you've gotten really deep into it is amazing. And that's right there, one of those times where, and Lori, thankfully you did not do this, but if you had decided what all the small steps were and you were just plugging on, you decided them from the beginning and you never did that allowing for change, then you would have had a whole lot of work to do to go back and make that adjustment. But you were smart and you did not do that. You've just been focusing on what are the next steps, and that allows for this change. And I love that for you. That is awesome. Yay, yay, yay. And I love that you can run reports because you've got the information in there. You're rocking that one, Lori. You really are. Cindy says, so true. Coral says, yay, one easy blank on the binder. Yes, just one. If you do that every day, one blank anywhere in the binder, that's 365 blanks by the end of the year. You realize that's probably most of the binder, right? So one blank a day can absolutely get you there. Lori says, oops, I often wait until I'm in the right frame of mind to work on a big or small project, right? You don't need to be in the right frame of mind. There are times where you need to give yourself grace if there's a lot of other heavy things going on. However, waiting for the right frame of mind sometimes backfires, right? Sometimes it is just getting started and doing those small steps, but not pushing your brain. If it's still not flowing and you're still struggling and then you need to explore further instead of pushing yourself when you're having a miserable time. But yes, don't wait to get started. I love that. Jana says, could it be a printing or formatting issue? Oh, for Quicken. Yeah, with Quicken, it's often just what fields it pulls from. And I think Lori's spot on with it's probably going to be a tag thing or maybe memo, depending on what pulls up in those reports. Yep. Coral says, still working on my desk. Small task, moving paperwork for taxes in the shoebox off the desk to the cubby shelf. Yay! Yes, that is such a beautiful small task. Susan says, thank you, gotta run. You're so welcome. Mwah. Love you, beautiful. Glad you were here. Charlene says, I am going to gather all my papers and put them in one place where I don't see them all the time. I'll put a 15-minute schedule on my calendar and work 15 minutes a day until finished. Oh my goodness, Charlene, that is music to my ears and so amazing. I can't wait. Please tell me how that goes. Tell me if it makes a difference for you, because I think that that's just gold. I love it. Rosella says, so true, because I feel I have little motivation to do anything. I like the concept of motion. Start the activity by doing the motion and continue with the small steps. Amen, sister. Coral says, same with the desk papers. Yes, yes. Laura says, I'm working on creating a list of where my stepson lived this past year. Group home is mom's, our home, hospital, jail, homeless. I've been going through phone notes and calendars. Yeah, if you have this need to be able to figure out where he was living when, if that's, use the rule of fives. And if that is something that would be useful, then very good. I love that. And that's nice. Just one small step, just where has he been living is a really good step for starting. Ah, love and kisses. Thank you. And yeah, Coral says to Charlene, that's an action file. Yeah, Charlene, if you don't have your action file set up yet, it is so helpful. Go to the store, SuzannaKaye.com. There's a free guide on how to set up your action file, and that helps so much with storing a lot of those papers too. All right. Well, beautiful, beautiful job today. I love you so much. Pathfinders, if you are one of my members, then in just a couple minutes, we're headed over to our Pathfinders Thursday talks, and we can dive in deeper and talk about our weeks and all that good stuff. If you're not a Pathfinder yet, stop by SuzannaKaye.com, try it out. You can always try it for a month and then cancel. It's okay, but just see if it's for you, because I would love to have you join us on some of these Pathfinders Thursday talks, office hours, group hikes, all the good stuff we have. So, yep, Lori says to Charlene, can't wait to find out how 15 minutes works for you. And I can't wait to find out from you how all of this works. Please let me know in the comments. Come back, tell me what your progress is, tell me what you thought and all that good stuff. I've loved talking to you. I will talk to you more very, very soon. Yeah, Nancy says, the same old song for me, my way delayed, get rid of the old PC project. Gotta start. First step, get external hard drive out and look at it. Then compare the PC. Yes, I love that. Small step. And that does not mean you have to do all of your steps today. Today could be just one step. Just get it out. I love it. All right, beautiful. I will see Pathfinders. I'll see you in just a minute. The rest of you, I love you. I will see you next week. Have an amazing one, and you've got this. One small step at a time. I love you. Bye now.